there are so many different layers to that film, and so many of the similar themes that Ang Lee has worked on throughout his career, which we maybe, which are hidden in plain sight, which we don't really think about when we watch his films for the first time. That's a recurring theme in Ang Lee's films. If you watch Brokeback Mountain,
Yeah.
it's about homosexuals who are, again, it's set in 60s, 70s, where that was really considered a crime. That was legally a crime. So there was that unrequited love. I immediately loved it because it wasn't just action, it was a lot of romance, a lot of like emotional drama, and the characters were really interesting. All of the characters had a lot of different dimensions and different depth.
Hi Harshal, welcome to Spoiler Alert with me, Cinephile Sanket. So Harshal, first of all, how are you? And today we are discussing your one of your favorite films, which is called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which is directed and produced by Ang Lee. And so, first of all, like, would you yourself introduce yourself and introduce this great film?
Of course. Thank you so much, Sanki, for having me on your show. I think, and especially like letting me choose this film, which is very somehow I'm very close to, and I feel like a kinship to it for some reason. I guess we'll get into that when we talk about the film. So I'm an aspiring filmmaker. I moved to New York 3 years ago from India, and currently I'm working some media production jobs and also trying to make short films, trying to produce short films and documentaries for others. I've done that uh, back in India as well, since like it's been around almost 10 years now that I've been doing that. Um, and to introduce the film, so well, it's a very typical kind of wuxia film, which was like a martial arts kind of genre that came out of Chinese film industry and a little bit more on the Taiwanese film industry, where there was this really huge filmmaker. Like, he, he was really a giant in making those films. His name was King Hu, and it was also like it's like an action blockbuster genre. And this film in particular is like a co-production of a lot of different countries, and it features a lot of even from East Asia. The actors that are coming together, they are from someone is from Hong Kong, someone is from Taiwan, someone is from Malaysia, someone is from actual mainland China, where the film is set, where the film story is set. But the whole film is not just like a action blockbuster, but it has a lot of depth to it, emotional and social depth to it. And this plot is really simple that there's this guy, his name is Lee Mumbai. He used to be this kind of a really unparalleled swordsman. Now he's sort of in his retirement phase where he's like more subdued and more into meditation and all of that. That phase of life, all of us can relate with. You know, and he is returning the sword because he thinks that that sword was making him violent, or he has that kind of a troubled relationship with that sword. And that sword is really like crafted to perfection. It's one of the finest swords in the entire world. So he's trying to give that sword up, and someone steals that sword. And so begins this whole drama about who has stolen that sword, what kind of person that is, and their why they did that, and why what kind of pressure that they are feeling to do that. And I don't want to even though the show is called spoiler alert, I don't want to get too much into the plot, because I think like the film has more to offer than just the plot, which is quite very straightforward, quite very simple. And even the director Ang Lee agrees that it has a lot of cliches. But there are a lot of things he also is doing differently. compared to the genre films. So it's a film I feel that has a lot of layers to it, while having very entertaining action sequences. So I think that's like the really great combination of you know entertaining cinema and artistic kind of emotional experience.
But Harshal, when did you watch this film for the first time, and what was your experience back then compared to now? You just rewatch this film just to record for this podcast. What was your experience like right now? Like, just tell me all about it.
Well, I watched this film actually earlier this year, and I'd heard about this film long time ago. I mean, it's been 20 years since then, since that film came out, and it's been a classic. Like, it was the film that was like, it kind of foreshadowed Parasite in that sense. Even now, only Roma has tried to tie that record of most nominations by a foreign language film in Oscars, and it won 4 Academy Awards for Oscars, and was nominated for 10 nominations, for 10 awards. And it's a very popular film, and I somehow had not watched it, but I watched King Hu's A Touch of Zen, which is considered the highest work of art in Wuxia filmmaking, and it's like a 3-hour film, full of really amazing action sequences. Again, a lot of profound depth. And when I watched it, I felt like, wow, this is really something, it, beyond just an action entertainer. And there was a there was a video of Ang Lee talking about how influential A Touch of Zen was for him. And that's when I decided, like, that this was during the lockdown. I was unemployed, I still didn't have any job, and I was like, that's when I decided, like, okay, let's watch this film. On one of the days, I was like, one of the nights, I was like, let's just, I don't want to watch like Godar or something, which I have to think constantly about. I just want to watch something entertaining, and that's when I decided to watch it, and I immediately loved it, because it wasn't just action; it was a lot of romance, a lot of like emotional drama, and the characters were really interesting. All of the characters had a lot of different dimensions and different depth, and that really blew my mind. And its end is very ambiguous, and it's at the same time it's very existential, which is like a very important topic for me. And I had to so this is another thing of mine. I like to watch video essays and like interviews
Same here,
and
same here.
watch films with commentary, so I wanted to like know more about what that end means to a lot of different people. And so I watched a few started watching a few videos on YouTube, or on in the extras that are with the Blu-ray. And that's when I started realizing that there are so many different layers to that film, and so many of the similar themes that Ang Lee has worked on throughout his career, which we maybe, which are hidden in plain sight, which we don't really think about when we watch his films for the first time. That really got me thinking into, like, that got me thinking that how did this filmmaker presented this kind of an entertainment film with so much of things to think about and so much of cultural context to it. That really made me fall in love with the film. And I mean, of course, the film looks stunning. It's the cinematography is so beautiful, so gorgeous.
It won
The
an
actors are
Oscar for
so amazing.
cinematography.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that's like it had to won it. There was just no other contender that year.
Exactly. But you talked about just one word. I didn't get, like, what was that, the something you talk about which starts with a W. What was that actually?
Wuxia?
Yeah, exactly. So what's just, can you elaborate something? on that?
Well, I'm not an expert, but wuxia is sort of a film genre where it used to be a literature genre. Like, it used to be a pulp fiction sort of thing where it would be well, they would have like these small novels published cheaply, and they had just a lot of thrill, and like, that's where the whole idea was, that there were these servants which were not necessarily affiliated with the different kings and queens. China has this whole history of like different dynasties ruling their entire land throughout all these different centuries. And so there were these stories about all these swordsmen, or fighters who are very skilled fighters, and they can go rogue and they can go on their own. They are basically like free in their sense, but they also sometimes they take up these kind of different jobs for the rulers. um, so it came out of that literature, and that literature is really popular. So a lot of East Asian filmmakers, they always say that we used to read those and we used to get really influenced, and we used to really all of them always wanted to, like, make these kind of films. So if you see, like, Zhang Yimou has made these kind of films where people are flying, they have their swords and they are like fighting with each other, maybe sometimes one on one, sometimes they are fighting with 100 people at once. That's what it's called, wuxia. If
Okay.
you A lot of like Jet Li films are there. Those are wuxia films, basically, of
Oh, okay.
martial arts combined with this kind of sword action.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for just like sharing this information. I actually didn't know about this art or this word as well. Like I actually personally didn't know about it. But yeah, coming back to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Harshal, I actually watched this film back in 2017. And in 2016, actually, I watched Life of Pi for the first time.
Mm.
And so back then I was just discovering the Hollywood blockbuster films. So then I actually got to know that okay, Life of Pi is a movie. It was a thing back in 2012, and
Mm.
it was a big thing, and it had Irfan and it had Tabu and many others, even Adil Hussain as well. So I had to watch
Irfan
it.
Khan.
Irfan Khan, exactly. So I had to watch it. So I watched it, and then I got to know that okay, Ang Lee has directed this film. So let's see like what other films has he directed. So
Mm.
I downloaded this film, and then I don't know, for some reason I didn't watch it, just like you. So I didn't watch it. But back in 2017, when I just discovered that what is like world cinema, I discovered films from around the world, not just about Hollywood. I discovered this film as well. So I watched it finally in 2017, and I was kind of blown away that wow, like all those flying scenes were actually being shot. So how beautifully it was shot, and I was just like blown away by all those shots. And I just remember that it had some flying shots, and it was just a story about a sword and a cat and mouse thing about around a sword. And I just remember it till now. And just before I rewatched this film, and like it hit me on a completely different level,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
back then I was just a cinephile when I watched it. And now I personally, I don't know, I can call myself an aspiring filmmaker. I absolutely don't have any idea. But like obviously we have changed humans actually changed after some years as well. So I changed myself, and then I actually watched this film. So this film actually particularly hit me on a completely different level. So
Mm.
uh, I think it's a perfect blockbuster, I would say, like even for an
Yeah.
American audience as well, because it adds romance, action, and like all those fantasy elements as well, and even it's a period film, so
Yeah.
like, and also this film actually encouraged me to watch some other films as well, to which are set in that era, or an era, some eras later as well. So that's the reason I watched The Last Emperor, which is like not
Mm.
set in the same era, but it has a period, a kind of a feeling, because it's about a king, it's about the emperor who is the last emperor of China, and his reign, from his like yeah from his birth, from his coronation, and from his fall. So all those kind of things happen in that film. But actually, because of this reason, I encouraged, pumped up to watch The Last Emperor. So I just loved it, how Ang Lee like made it, and that's the reason uh, I'm actually also excited to watch other Ang Lee films as well, like not just this film, but I've also watched Brokeback Mountain, and I've also watched
Yeah.
Life of Pi. Yeah, I watched, but I'm yet to watch Sense and Sensibility, and
Yeah.
Lust, Caution, and other films of
Yeah.
him as well. Like
Me too.
I'm exactly, like I'm just obsessed with his work as well.
Yeah. Did you know that yesterday was Ang Lee's birthday?
Oh
I
my
had no idea when we decided upon this date, and I was like, suddenly it popped up on my Instagram that, someone had shared that some shots from his different films, and like, which film do you like? And I went to Wikipedia and checked what was his birthday, and I was like, wow, October 23rd is his birthday, and I'm rewatching the film, one of my favorite Ang Lee films. I was
This
really
happened
super
with
happy.
me during, like, when I was watching an Akira Kurosawa film. I was watching Throne of Blood or High and Low. I don't know which one, but it was one of the two.
Both of them
uh,
are my favorite.
Exactly. Like I know the reason why it might be one of your favorite, but uh, so I was watching it, and then I later googled about the film. I just wanted to know some other films, other elements as well, and then I got to know that, okay, this today is Akira Kurosawa's birthday, and like, wow, such
Amazing.
what a coincidence. And thankfully you also
Yeah.
had a similar experience, like watching his film, just like one day after his birthday. Just like it's a great feeling, like personally speaking, I know that experience as well. Like, but
Yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you, you actually talked about the layers, like it had many layers in this film. So can you just elaborate on that? Like, what were the layers you were just like talking about?
Yeah. Uh, there is a core story of Zhang Zi's character and like Chang Chen's character's love story.
Hmm.
They are separated because he's sort of like from a lower caste or
He's a
different kind of.
barbarian, I think.
Yeah, and she is an aristocrat. She's basically a governor's daughter, so very high class, high class in the society. And there is that story. Then there is the story of Michelle Yeoh and Xiao Yun Fat. They are sort of these kind of um, warriors that they are not really considered part of a traditional family. They don't really have that kind of structure, so that's why they are not really sure if uh, they could be together or not. So there is that unrequited love, and that's a recurring theme in Ang Lee's films. If you watch Brokeback Mountain,
Yeah.
it's about homosexuals who are, again, it's set in 60s, 70s, where that was really considered a crime. That was legally a crime. So there was that unrequited love. In Life of Pi, it's not exactly love, but there is a kinship. There is like
A unique bonding between him and the
a
tiger.
brotherhood between the tiger and the and our protagonist, and ultimately they separate. and all the protagonist hopes that I never got that acknowledgement of that bond from that tiger. And so, and you also should watch earlier Ang Lee films which he made in Taiwan. One of them I've watched. One of them is, it's quite famous. It's called Eat, Drink, Man, Woman.
Yeah, I heard about it. I heard
And
about it.
that film has sort of like a King Lear kind of a plot, where it's a father and he has three daughters, and over the course of the film we see how his three daughters like move on from his house. And it's really, he sort of showing us a clash between Taiwanese civilizations, family and traditional codes versus Western civilization, which is taking a hold nowadays in in a lot of different parts of the world. And so that's one of the main themes. That's one of the main layers of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Now I have to come back to the title, which is such a peculiar title, and we really wonder about what that means. There are no tigers or dragons in the entire film. You never see any kind of like animals like that. You see a lot of horses. But the title has a lot of different meanings. It's like an old Chinese proverb. And what it means is repressed emotions, basically. In the context of this film, what it prominently means is, you see a person and you just assume something based on their physical appearance or physicality, that this is this kind of a person. Maybe you see someone standing still, you see that this is kind of a calm person, but you never know what they're feeling inside. You never know the kind of effort they're putting in being that calm. So you always have, there is always this sense of invisible forces that are inside a person, and that's what sort of that hidden dragon means, that you can see a person standing still, but it could be a hidden dragon inside them, within them. If, like, let's say five people come together and they started attacking this person, maybe that person will turn really violent and like kill all the five people. That's a bad example, but it's that's how layered that whole idiom is, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And that's just one of the meanings that the film endorses, because you have Zhang Zi's character who's gonna get married. Her parents are forcing her to get married to a person of their choice, and she is in love with Shang Chen, who is never going to be accepted in that society. And she is very young, and she's like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to. I want to live life on my terms. That's why she had these repressed emotions. She had this training who nobody knows about, that she's such a trained and skilled warrior. So she decides to, like, steal that sword. And of course, I mean, later in the film, she just leaves her parents. She just leaves her family and goes in this wild adventure kind of retreat, where it's like a statement on her part that I won't be controlled by anyone. I'm gonna take up my freedom. And so it's a lot about socially repressed emotions that we enforce people through. We when we grow up, parents, or overall society is forcing us to get a career, get married, start a family. All of that structure is there, that if you start rebelling against, you are considered like someone who is not obedient, and who is like an odd person in the society. You're like sort of pushed away from the rest of the people. And that's where I relate with it a lot. That how he gives a voice to that kind of a phenomenon, which is which controls our life, basically. So it's all these different layers that I continue to like find in that film, which is why I love that film so much.
Wow, like it also has a social commentary also, like I knew about
Yeah.
it. like you thanks to you, actually I got to know that it also has a social commentary as well, and thanks to you I actually got to know that it had very similar themes which were in Ang Lee's other films as well, not just his previous films films before he made Crouching Tiger, but like after he made this film as well. So this actually proves that he is such a great director. I don't know what has happened to him, like he's making fucking Gemini Man and all those kind of shit, I don't know. But
Yeah,
like I hope he sometimes comes back to his roots of making something like a Life of Pi, or like this film, actually like such a beautiful film. And even I actually loved those fight sequence as well. Like obviously this conversation, this discussion will not be over if we not talk about the fight sequence, like such great, because at that time the Matrix also had been released, and
yeah.
so such a coincidence, because I actually watched the Matrix just recently, and to
I love the
record.
Matrix.
Exactly. Who doesn't? But like I actually watched the Matrix just to record for my podcast, for my another podcast, and then I watched this film. So I'm actually in confusion, like which film has a better fight sequence, because this also was like
Yeah,
because like the Matrix had all those guns and like bullets and all those things, but here you have like natural lights and all those lightings,
yeah.
and you had like
And
such.
material weapons, and like, you have to be close when you're fighting, in a sense, in this film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so here
That's like another
it felt
layer
like a
we just
dance,
discovered.
like all those even
Yeah,
the fight sequence and all those like climbing, like all those flying sequences. Yeah, flying sequences. It felt like a dance, and because it had such great set pieces also, and I love set pieces. Like I love all those
mm,
films which had great set pieces, like The Last Emperor and all those period films, like not just that, all those like Gladiator and all those films. I just love them. So that's the main reason I actually watched them, because like that's the main reason I actually watched those films, just to watch all those fight sequence. And like a year they didn't have such a large huge army just to fight, but yeah, they had just had 3 to 4 people just fighting against each other, and sometimes they only had a duel. So that was such a brilliant thing. Like it was a bonus thing for me. Like I personally like
mm,
those films. Obviously there are very like some films like The Lord of the Rings, and like I have just heard about it, I have never watched it, but I have just heard about it, that it had the fight sequences had a huge army with it and all those things. So I love it, but like sometimes duels are much better for me. Like that's the
mm,
main reason I watched this film, and like I love this film. That's the main reason actually. And also I loved the romance sequences as well. Like
yeah,
I didn't expect it that like a Chinese film actually had this level of intimate sequences in this film. Like
mm,
since China is very much into censoring all those things,
yeah.
I
It's a
like.
pretty conservative society.
Exactly. So I actually didn't really expect those kind of things, but actually got to know a fact that the lead, the actor who played the barbarian was actually in A Brighter Summer Day. And
Yeah,
like, have you watched that film?
yeah. I have watched
Yeah, and
that
I
one.
actually I watched that film just last year, and
Uh-huh.
I remembered that film, and I remembered that character, and I remembered the actor as well. But seeing that actor in this film, I think like, okay, he has advanced. So that was a fun thing, just to like, I don't know. But like this also had like some similar faces as well, like Michelle, I'm forgetting her last name.
Michelle. Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh. So she was also in Crazy Rich Asians as well. Like I think
Yeah.
I may be correct. So she wasn't like this also had some similar faces as well. So I just loved how they brought together all those film like actors you just mentioned that like Ang Lee bought the actors from Malaysia and Taiwan
Mm.
and Hong Kong and
Yeah.
also mainland China. So that was a really fun thing to do about Ang Lee also.
Yeah, I mean, so it came out like, so Chow Yun Fat, he's a huge Hong Kong superstar,
Mhm.
and the film he's made with like uh with I always I hope I'm not mispronouncing Johnny Woo or John Woo. John Woo, I think it's just John Woo.
Mhm.
Uh, Hard boiled, and those kind of completely action and cop dramas, very violent films, which have a lot of guns. And
Mhm.
here he is like more into sword fighting, and he's basically he's primarily a Cantonese speaker, which is a different language
Mhm.
than Mandarin, which is
Mhm.
Mandarin is the main
Mhm.
language of China. And uh, and I know all of this because when I rewatched the film, I rewatched it with commentary by Ang Lee and producer slash writer James Seamus. That's what I was watching when I did the rewatch today. And Ang Lee mentioned that Michelle Yeoh grew up in Malaysia, but she's also like a Hong Kong superstar, and she's sort of like she's also wuxia and genre filmmaking superstar, because she's like action filmmaking. She's done a lot of action films, and so he was quite proud of having these kind of different generations of action filmmakers. The main villain, who is Jade Fox, she was also like a huge action filmmaker superstar, in coming out of Taiwan. She's worked with King Hu on his films, and so he had this three generations. Like, um, I forgot her name, who played the villain, but that woman, Michelle Yeoh, and Zhang Ji. Zhang Ji is also done, like, this was Zhang Ji's first film in general. Like, it was her debut, and she's so stunning in that. But she's made a lot of action films later on. So he was quite proud of that. He also mentions how Chang Chen is from Taiwan, Chow Yun Fat is from Hong Kong, Michelle Yeoh is from Malaysia, and Zhang Ji is from mainland China. Who And she grew up in Beijing, you know. So she's sort of like, she was a city girl, and here she's completely into transformed into that period, and that kind of village outside even the main city, in a sense. No, sorry, I'm wrong about that. I think they show Beijing in that period of 16th 17th century. um, and It was like a pan world production. It was like, Sony Pictures put some money, Sony Pictures Asia put some money, there some money was coming from Europe. And so that's why there was also this kind of
It was a co-production. You were saying
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. And there was also this kind of, like, one of the screenwriters is American.
Mhm.
So he's bringing in, one of the screenwriters is American,
Oh wow.
James Seamus, and he's written a screenplay for almost all of the Ang Lee films. So he's a really old collaborator of Ang Lee, and he was mentioning how they were trying to incorporate certain elements which were more coming out of American cinema, American commercial cinema, and they were trying to like have this kind of a marriage, this kind of fusion of Chinese cinema and American cinema. So there are some elements which are coming out of those wuxia films, and there are like this whole emotional drama, and like, people talking with each other, having conversations, uh, and for a lot of time, like, for the first 15 minutes, it's just drama. For an action film, like, it doesn't start with action. first 15 minutes are just like people talking to each other, and like, you see the scenery, you see what the city is, what this period is, and all of that. And that's
I
almost
think
like
so.
that's
So actually, I after watching this film, I also had that director's commentary in that print, and I also listened to that some like the starting bit of it, and I actually heard that Ang Lee talking that like we can't start a film with an action sequence because like American people in Hollywood will the Hollywood people won't love that. So we had to start with like some conversation. We had to start building up
yeah.
that fight sequences. So actually,
Mhm.
I listened to only that sequence, but I like I'm getting what you are saying that.
Yeah, yeah. So there are a lot of throughout the commentary, throughout the film, he talks about how he was nervous about certain elements, how the Chinese audience will react to what he was doing, and how American audience will react to what he was doing. Like for example, he says that he really likes the stance, and like, when you start fighting, you in that whole there is this whole idea of master and disciple throughout the
Hmm.
film. And when you start fighting, there is like a gesture at the beginning that you have to do before you start fighting, and that gesture, that stance shows where you learned that kind of a skill. So there were these different kind of schools that taught that kung fu martial arts. And so he was quite nervous about how the American audience will get that, what Chinese audience is already aware of. So that's why I feel like, they really did a great job of combining those two things. And there was this challenge of in front of Ang Lee, that how he can uh, present Chinese ethnicity, Chinese culture to Western audience, um, while making an action film.
Wow.
And I like that a lot. I think, yeah, I think he did a really great job. That's why
Wow.
we have this film that can be appreciated by any kind of audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, yeah, I like 100% agree with you. But Harshal, I finally have to end this conversation.
Oh
Sadly,
no.
like I know we can talk about this film like for hours, but like I finally have to end this. But thank you so much, Harshal, for like coming to my podcast. It's been a real pleasure having you just like talk about this. Like one of your favorite films. So like I hope I'll see you soon for another podcast as well. For another episode
Yeah,
we'll discuss another great film of yours. So like
absolutely.
let's
Let's do
hope.
this again.
Yeah, sure, thank you so much. Thank you. I like I'm glad, yeah, you are pumped up to like just talk about another film. Like
Yeah.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much, Shil.
Thank you, Sanket.
And yeah, I'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.